And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Donald Trump and Dr. Ben Carson no longer playing nice as they try to win over primary voters. Meanwhile, although Lois Lerner and the IRS were found innocent of any wrongdoing, Washington Times now reporting the tax man is still targeting conservative groups. A new report shows the majority of working Americans earn less than, get this, $30,000 a year. Should we be alarmed? We talk about that. So much more. This is the Daily Wrap live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger, held up the fort while I was predisposed.
Predisposed?
Yes.
Predisposed towards what?
Well, let's change the subject. Dr. Ben Carson, now leading in Iowa, the Hawkeye state. Are you surprised?
Well, I'm not, because according to Donald Trump, this is all the result of a couple of newspapers that don't like him. And that's why Dr. Carson is leading.
So they're actually altering polls.
They're cheating, yes, apparently.
Wow,
that's according to Trump, that's the problem.
Well, let's not cheat our viewers.
Might have a little bit more to do with the advertising being run against him by Club for Progress, though.
I read the $1 million finally paying off. Interesting. Okay, let's talk more about that with the man to Rick's right. He's the founder and CEO of Change Up Media, LLC. Ben Weingarten is back. And finally, he's an Emmy winner, Forbes.com contributor. Bill Tucker joins us as well. It must be Monday. All right, let's get right to the Daily Download.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lois Lerner, and I'm the Director of Exempt Organizations at the Internal Revenue Service. I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee. And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
And she repeated that about 90 times during said hearing. And that was Ms. Lerner pleading the fifth during a congressional hearing on charges the IRS was targeting conservative groups that applied for tax-exempt status. As we told you on Friday, according to the DOJ, there will be no charges filed against Lois Lerner or anyone else in the Obama administration. Assistant Attorney General Peter Kadzik said in a letter to Congress that the FBI investigation into the matter found, and we quote, substantial evidence of mismanagement, poor judgment, and institutional inertia leading to the belief by many tax-exempt applicants that the IRS targeted them based on their political viewpoints. But poor management is not a crime. We've found no evidence that any IRS official acted based on political, discriminatory, corrupt, or other inappropriate motives that would support a criminal prosecution. However, today the Washington Times reporting that although the DOJ ruled, the IRS is still actively holding up tax-exempt status for conservative nonprofit groups. Meanwhile, several lawsuits are pending against the IRS. One group, Citizen for Self-Governance, are behind a class action lawsuit against said IRS. The group's president is Mark Meckler. He joins us now from California. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
So the DOJ missed the boat on this ruling, didn't they?
I mean, they only missed the boat if you believe that they're actually for justice. What they're really for is injustice. They serve the Obama administration. Their goal is to protect administration hackies and lackeys, and that's what they've done here with Lois Lerner. She has a long history, goes way before her time at the IRS. She was with the FEC where she got reprimanded and disciplined for attacking Christian groups. This is just who she is and what she does.
Mark, it's Rick Unger. Listen, I have sympathy for your point of view, because I do think that there was some shenanigans going on here at the IRS. But I am very curious about your lawsuit, which I've gone through. I'm kind of wondering how you plan to make the case that this is a constitutional violation, given that the Constitution doesn't create a right to a 501c3 or C4. And I'm also, I know that you're planning to go through the Privacy Act, which could create a possibility, but it's a little touchy because I don't know that this kind of an organization is defined as an individual for that. So wouldn't you think you'd want to bring a lawsuit to get a court to tell the IRS to speed it up as opposed to going for money damages?
Well, no, because there actually are money damages. There actually are invasions of rights of privacy, and not just of organizations, but of the individuals that are parts of these organizations. Remember that the IRS asked for things like donor lists, Those people have protected rights of privacy. And the constitutional issue here is one of it's a First Amendment issue. We have the right of private political association. The IRS doesn't have the right to ask the kind of questions they did, nor to categorize or target us based on our political orientation. That's what they did in this case. That's what this case is about. And there are money damages that should lie. You have the plaintiff class in this case spent literally collectively probably tens of thousands of hours preparing these documents, unconstitutional requests by the IRS, and it shut down their fundraising, it shut down their ability to do media, and by all accounts, it affected their participation in the 2014 election. So there is a cause of action here. That's why we're pursuing it, and the judge agrees.
Again, I buy your gripe, I do. And again, I've always wondered why these groups didn't bring a suit prior to 2014 to get it sped up. But, you know, when Congress passes a law and Congress puts tests in to qualify, as they do for C3s and C4s, then I don't see how the IRS does not have the right to ask those questions. And you said that a judge has agreed. Tell us more about that. What judge has?
Sure. So this is really important. So really 3 of these cases were filed, 2 in the D.C. federal court and ours in Cincinnati. And in D.C., those cases were thrown out. And Judge DeLotte in our Cincinnati court disagreed. She allowed the case to proceed. We've made it past the motion to dismiss case, or phase of the case. Recently, Judge DeLotte stated in open hearing it was her belief that rights had been violated. She said she's not sure exactly what the remedies are, but it's her belief, the court's belief already, that rights have been violated.
I kind of got to say, you made my point. 2 of them were thrown out, and in the one that she allowed to go forward, which you and I both know means nothing except that she saw enough to go forward, she's saying, and I agree with her, I think maybe rights were violated, but I have the same problem. I don't see where there is a remedy. Maybe you can quickly tell us, why didn't anybody bring these actions, as I think they could have, before the 2014 election?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Look, our group is not normally a funder of third-party litigations. We did it because none of these other groups were doing it. We went to the ACLJ and asked them. We went to Cleta Mitchell, who brought the other suit, and asked them. And what we heard is there was a lot of no action going on. They were inquiring with the IRS, they were pressing the IRS, but there was no litigation being filed. That's why we filed this litigation, and specifically the reason we chose a class action is because there are hundreds of parties that have been hurt there. Many of them will never join as named litigants. We thought it was important to bring all of them into the litigation.
And Mark, it's Joe again. Do you see a pattern here as far as, in Lerner's case, BlackBerry goes missing, server mysteriously crashes, in Hillary Clinton, same thing, only 30,000 emails are turned over, a possible 55 or at least 55,000 pages. Is that the new precedent now, that if you work in government that you could just destroy stuff and then there are no consequences that are behind it?
It is the new precedent. You know, people liken it back to the Nixon era, but Nixon made the mistake of destroying just a couple of sections of tape, where here what they found is if they destroy it all, if they obfuscate and delay and destroy evidence, there are no consequences. This is a really significant problem in America. We're a nation of laws, and right now the citizens believe that the government officials don't believe themselves subject to those laws. It's a fundamental problem in the country.
Well, we'll certainly be following this, Mark, and we appreciate you joining us on the Daily Wrap. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Mr. Tucker, your thoughts, but first, Mr. Unger.
I just, you know, it's such an interesting area. Listen, I may be a Democrat, but I too believe that there was some bad behavior involved in this. But what was interesting to me is why the Department of Justice didn't go after it. I did a little research. You know, the trick would be political. If they did it for political reasons, it would be criminal. Problem is, they haven't been able to make a case. There was no standing record to do it.
But there does seem to be some consistency here. It's not like they were doing this to liberal groups, whatever that might be.
Well, they did, but not in the same numbers.
Right.
To be sure.
So the consistency of action
but that
really
doesn't rise to the level of
itself
criminal.
to.
But they did.
You can't make the case.
They did filter, though, based upon certain words, which you clearly associate with one party.
You're right, but you could make the argument that those words would indicate that this is an applicant who would be more than likely to break the rules as another. I get your point. I totally see it. But there is a justification, is my point, as to why they wouldn't proceed criminally here.
The sad thing is there's just no recourse for the people who are affected here.
Yeah, at this point, there's not.
Bill, last word.
No, I just feel like this were happening to liberal groups, it'd be a much greater outcry.
They'd be screaming,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it would be the same result, I suspect.
So, did the DOJ get this wrong? You can go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let your voice be heard. Coming up after the break, some shocking facts on how little Americans are currently earning. You're not going to want to miss this. Great Daily Wrap tonight. Stick around.
How are you today? Hi.
Julius Torrevillas is behind the wheel of a Santa Barbara MTD bus 5 days a week. A full-time job that pays $19 an hour to the jovial driver with the unforgettable beard. When his workday's over, he moves from his bus to another vehicle, his van, where he lives.
A regular full-size mattress.
This is home because he makes too much to qualify for public housing, but can't afford rent in the high-cost city of Santa Barbara.
Wow, that story just one example of the difficulties faced by hard-working American men and women as they try to make ends meet on inadequate wages. Now, you may think this man's situation is an outlier, but you may be surprised to find that the problem is far, far worse than you might have imagined. According to the National Wage Index out today, 51% of working Americans are making less than $30,000 a year. Now, as you can see from this chart, that amount is just barely above the poverty line for a family of 5 and less than $100 a week over the poverty line for a family of 4. Let me repeat that. More than half of working Americans are making just above the poverty level. And that doesn't even take into account the 8 million who are currently unemployed. I think we can all agree that this is not how life is supposed to go in the United States of America, where hard work is supposed to result in a decent lifestyle. The question is, who's to blame? Is this a failure of government or a failure of the private sector to better share the wealth by paying employees a better, more livable wage? Joe, how would you answer that question?
That's a tough question, isn't it? I mean,
well, you know, everybody's always all too ready to blame whoever the president is at the time. But is it really his fault?
there are higher taxes, higher cost of health care, higher education costs.
What if they were lower?
If they were lower?
Lower taxes. Would it matter?
Can I go back to that package that we watched beforehand? And that's what we showed of the bus driver. $19 an hour. If he's working a full week, I understand that it's hard to afford an apartment on your own, but if you find a roommate or two...
He's got a wife.
He's got a wife. He and the wife live in the van.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty hard to get a roommate.
I have a hard time believing that you can't find an apartment somewhere that you can afford, that you have to live in a van. It can't be that extreme.
Well, part of it is he's in Santa Barbara.
He has a van. He could drive to another city that costs less money.
In that area, it's tough to do.
All right.
And that's where his job is. However, we still see all these people all over America having this problem, Bill.
Yeah, this is like a hot button issue for me on this, because it is a little bit of everybody to blame, and it sounds like a bit of a cop out, but it's true. There's been a purposeful drive to lower wages of American workers. We know this because Alan Greenspan sat in front of the Senate Immigration Committee in 2009 and said we have to drive down the wages of Americans so that we can now become competitive on the world stage in terms of wages.
Let me
what
interrupt
an
you,
insane kind of policy.
You sent that quote to me, and I thought it was fascinating. Basically, if I understood it correctly, what Greenspan was saying, by making it so hard for high-skilled people to come in from other countries, we're artificially creating this expensive market for skilled workers, and that money is coming from the less skilled workers.
So here's what we do. We lower the standard of living and the quality of life for people.
So what
That's
you're
a great idea. Let's go do
what
that.
You're supporting is more legal immigration of high-skilled people.
Well, no. The reason in that particular quote, he was saying the reason we need to bring in more workers, foreign workers on visas, is because we're going to pay them less and we're going to drive down the wages of American workers. What do you think the anger in this country is about? Why do you think Bernie Sanders has such traction? Because he's talking about this. Why do you think Trump has such traction?
So
people are furious in this country. It's a combination of private lobbyists, private industry, failure of government policy, and the outrageous notion that somehow the government should be involved in driving down the wages of American workers so that we can quote unquote, because that was a policy. What Greenspan was talking about in that soundbite, that was a purposeful policy
of government. Ben?
Well, just a couple points. The first thing is on who is to blame, and there are obviously a million factors when you're looking at any part of an economy.
You're right, but you and I both know that find me a Republican out there, I'm sure there's a couple, maybe you, who won't lay this right at the feet of Obama, no matter how nonsensical that might be.
Well, not just Obama, but the entire political class and the entire political establishment, in part. And there's also a difference. Let's be clear between between growing a pie and then wages growing in proportion to that pie
Except that,
versus
you know
how
what?
the pie is shifted.
We have recently grown the pie for those, corporations that are showing increasingly good earnings year after year after year, and that pie is not being
But a couple of things about that. One trend that we're seeing in the economy, and you see this across a number of sectors, is automation. Why is there such a quick acceleration in automation today? I would argue it's because the cost of labor, whether it's the legal costs, the HR costs, the compliance costs,
So you didn't get the point where it's cheaper to
all
have
of
a
those
robot.
costs, makes it so that actually progressives, in my view, and I'm not trying to put a political spin on it, are actually in effect pushing out of work lower skilled laborers who actually tend to be progressives.
So if that's true, and it could be, then basically the choice is to get no work at all or live poorly. Let me move on to the next question. I really want to know if any of you see the decline of the labor unions as part of this. The American Sociological Review does. They say it accounts for 1/3 to 1/2 of the rise of income inequality. Joe, was the destruction of the American unions in the private market a part of this puzzle?
Or have they been?
Pretty much. I mean, they're 15% tops now have unions in their private businesses?
Right. They've certainly
answer.
been weakened. No.
You don't think they have, Ben?
Well, my view is that you want to decrease barriers to entry. I work with a group called Gen FKD, which works with millennials who are younger, and entrepreneurship is declining among younger people. So we want to kill those barriers to entry, and unions are one of the killers.
So again, we're going to create entrepreneurs hoping that they'll pay a more decent wage to the people who help them get there, but they don't.
Yeah, but it's not like there was a conspiracy to get rid of governments, or of unions. Millennials don't want them because they want the opportunity that it creates by them not being there.
Yes. Good for those starting businesses, not good for those who work in businesses, no matter whom you may blame for this problem. There's little question that income inequality continues to be a serious challenge to the middle class. Stay with us because we're going to politics next.
We have a breaking story. Donald Trump has fallen to second place behind Ben Carson. We informed Ben, but he was sleeping.
Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Another weekend, another round of attacks and counterattacks by GOP frontrunner Donald Trump. While Mr. Trump appeared to be in fine form, he does appear to be feeling just a bit out of sorts over his polling decline in Iowa.
Nationally, you're doing great. You have some high negative numbers, but Iowa's a problem all of a sudden. You've fallen behind Ben Carson. Why?
I don't believe I did fall behind. It was one poll and a second poll. It was small polls. And I was in Iowa 3 days ago. We had a town hall that was unbelievable. It was packed. Thousands of people standing outside.
One poll's the Des Moines Register. Another's Quinnipiac, which you've said is a good poll.
Well, the Des Moines Register is a terrible paper as far as I'm concerned. No, it really is. It's
What
not
about
a respected
Quinnipiac?
paper. Very liberal paper, by the way. I believe, and I've been winning in Iowa. And by the way, I have other polls in Iowa that say I am winning, just so you understand. This was 2 small polls.
New to those feeling the sharp edge of the Trump treatment is Dr. Ben Carson, the current Iowa frontrunner, according to 2 recent polls the Hawkeye state has conducted. Take a look at what Mr. Trump had to say when discussing Carson's religion this weekend at a rally there over the weekend.
I'm Presbyterian. Boy, that's down the middle of the road, folks, in all fairness. I mean, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't know about. I just don't know about.
Mr. Carson's Seventh-day Adventist. What did you mean by that?
Well, exactly what I said. I don't know about that. I don't know about what that is. I'm not that familiar with it. I've heard about it, but I'm not that familiar with it. That wasn't meant to be an insult, obviously. It's just that I don't know about it.
Nah, it wasn't meant to be an insult.
It wasn't an insult.
Now, to many conservatives, the Seventh-day Adventist religion is not considered a Christian religion. So was Trump sending out a dog whistle, because he's always subtle, to evangelical Iowans? Or was he just saying he knows little about Dr. Carson's religious beliefs, Mr. Unger?
I think this is an easy call. It wasn't an insult, but what he was doing was telling all the Iowa voters, hey, you're evangelicals, you are heavy Christians. The Seventh-day Adventist thing, kind of like the Mormons were when Romney was running. They're not really Christians. I'm just saying Ben Carson's not a Christian. That's what it was.
Ben, you mentioned during the break that Republicans are very good at destroying themselves.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry if I'm sharing something that should have been off the record.
Sure.
But what the hell are we talking about here? Why aren't we talking about the economy and 94 million people out of work? Why aren't we talking about the Obama record, about Hillary Clinton, about all these things? All they do is just attack each other.
Yeah.
And we love it.
Good question,
well, thank
man.
you.
That's the
it's
right
great
question.
theater, but I mean, I don't think the Republicans really realize what they're doing here. Not the Republicans, it's Trump basically. And Carson doesn't take the bait, but I mean, when's it going to stop?
It's also steeping to a pretty low level that you don't think more highly of the Iowa voters than to float out that dog whistle trial balloon of, oh, well, he might not be a real Christian. Injecting that into the race, I think, is below Trump and below the rest of the field.
Does this mean Trump, Mr. Tucker, doesn't have a very good argument against Carson, so he's just going after him in the way that he went after the president over his birth certificate?
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think, I don't know why he doesn't want to just talk about the issues like you say. I agree with Ben. The Republicans, for whatever reason, and it's not just this a cycle, are very good at taking on each other and tearing them down. Why they haven't gotten to the issues, I don't know. And let's get some perspective, Mr. Trump. Rick Santorum won Iowa. The last time around, the Republicans were
Huckabee in 08.
And Huckabee did as well. I don't see either one of those guys in the presidency.
That's the thing, Rick, that Donald Trump has a decided advantage if we talk about economy, we talk about creating jobs, because he's actually done it. Yet he goes down this route.
Well, I frankly don't think that gives him a decided advantage.
Over Carson it does. He's a doctor.
Well, but again, it doesn't mean that Carson can't do it, but you're right. He ought to be talking about that.
Yeah, I guess
not
he
about.
figures.
But he knows how the voters go there.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's a political mistake. Ben Carson's a very likable guy. He is truly the American dream if you want to look at the candidates. So why attack him?
Likable and a front runner, at least according to 2 small polls in Iowa. Trump wasn't the only one racking up free media this weekend and making news. Listen to what Dr. Carson had to say while appearing on NBC's Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Think about this. During slavery, and I know that's one of those words you're not supposed to say, but I'm saying it. During slavery, a lot of the slave owners thought that they had the right to do whatever they wanted to that slave. Anything that they chose to do. And, what if the abolitionist had said, I don't believe in slavery. I think it's wrong. But you guys do whatever you want to do. Where would we be?
Okay, Bill, reasonable comparison to make?
I think it's a bit of a stretch, really, even though in some ways I agree with him, but I think it's a stretch.
Don't evoke Hitler, don't evoke slavery, just don't evoke it at all, because all it does is people hear that and they don't even listen to what you're saying, Ben.
I agree, although it might be calculated because he realizes that there is an advantage to pushing buttons you're not supposed to push.
Good point.
Well, I agree with Ben, but it's outrageous. It's absolutely outrageous what he keeps doing, and it's a shame because he's a nice man.
Okay. So, do you think the GOP campaign rhetoric has gotten a little too heated, or is this just the way you like it? Let us know. Share your thoughts. Go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Voice your opinion. Coming up, is Jeb Bush too sensitive to play in national politics? We'll let you know when we return.
If this election is about how we're going to fight to get nothing done, then I don't want anything. I don't want any part of it. I don't want to be elected president to sit around and see gridlock just become so dominant that people literally are in decline in their lives. That is not my motivation. I got a lot of really cool things that I could do other than sit around being miserable, listening to people demonize me and me feeling compelled to demonize them. That is a joke. Elect Trump if you want that.
Well, welcome back to the Daily Wrap. You remember when Jeb Bush told us that he only wanted to run for president if it was going to be a joyful campaign? Well, based on his latest remarks, it certainly doesn't seem like he's feeling that joy, does it? Appearing at a town hall held by South Carolina GOP Senator Tim Scott, Bush expressed his deep frustration with the GOP campaign and how it's unfolded. The one-time Florida governor appeared to have particularly harsh thoughts towards Donald Trump, who Bush seems to believe has been a little too tough on him. But has he really? Aside from Trump calling Bush low energy and laying some criticism on Mr. Bush's presidential brother, has Trump really been all that hard on Jeb, or is Jeb just a little too sensitive to play in national politics? Ben?
I think that the adroit politician would be able to take what Trump says and spin it back around on him and then go back to the issue. It's clear that Trump has basically built a massive Trump Tower in Jeb Bush's head. That's the bottom line.
He has. I mean, I got to agree with Ben on that one. It's ridiculous. I don't think Trump has been that hard on Jeb. You know, like I say, yeah, he's low energy, and he picks on his brother. But what does he? You know, he hasn't really hit him with that much.
No,
if you're a national politician, come on.
Ben's got it right. There is a Trump Tower in Jeb Bush's head, and it's huge and it's massive.
We're all going to use that, by the way.
That's gone.
Just credit me
That goes
someday.
viral. That
Joe,
goes viral.
what's the deal here? I mean, what is with him? Here I thought he had been elected governor of a pretty important state, Florida. It's a big state.
Yep.
You'd think he'd have the political skills that it takes to run for a national office. But he's done a horrible, horrible job. And now he's sitting around complaining he's got cooler things to do. And if you don't like me, go ahead and pick Trump. See if I care.
Jeb Bush is Michael Spinks. And Spinks fought.
Nobody knows who Michael Spinks
Michael
is.
Spinks fought back in the 80s, and then suddenly he went against this bulldog named Mike Tyson, who knocked him out in about 30 seconds. It beat him with a body shot.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing with Trump. That Trump knows where the kryptonite is in Mr. Bush's head, and that is to attack his family because he's extremely loyal to them. And when he goes after mommy and daddy and blames 9/11 on his brother, that gets to him, and he doesn't like to go into the swamp, and he's been forced to.
Well, there's no disputing that things have gone a bit rougher for the Bush campaign than had been initially expected. Last week, Jeb reorganized his campaign to cut staff and salaries due to the lack of dollars flowing into his coffers. And while his super PAC is sitting with some $100 million in cash just waiting to be spent, that is not money that can be directly spent on campaign staff, overhead, etc. Indeed, according to Bloomberg, Jeb is removing some senior staff from the payroll, parting ways with some consultants, and downsizing his Miami headquarters to save more than $1 million per month and cut payroll by 40%. While things look a little dark for Bush, and for that matter the entire field of establishment candidates, we all remember how John McCain had to cut his campaign staff down to almost zero in 2007, flying coach up to New Hampshire to do what he could, only to come back and win the GOP nomination. So guys, will Bush hang in there and hope that establishment candidates will at some point come back in fashion, or is the ship sailed and all we got left now are the outsiders? Tucker.
Well, let's bring the establishment back. If the establishment is petulant, no, that's not going to happen. Exactly, that's not going to happen. $100 million, that's incredible.
And now the establishment's going after each other. We're hearing all these stories today about how the Bush campaign's focusing on Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
Why are they focusing on Marco Rubio?
Well, clearly they view him as their biggest competitor when it comes to donors, and also another Floridian.
6th place versus 7th place.
Yeah, I think the thing to watch in terms of what establishment candidate is going to rise and who's going to fall is the stalking horses, the second-tier establishment candidates. Who are they going to attack? The people they're going to attack are going to be on behalf of the people they think are going to win.
So, Joe, is Jeb Bush already cooked? Is it all over for the establishment?
Rick, yeah. Well, it's over for Jeb Bush, because I said from the very beginning, with you as my witness, he is not a good candidate.
You did.
He always thought the donor class, the money would save him. So what do? They increase all this spending on ads in New Hampshire, and his numbers keep dropping. He's kind of like Hillary, where the more you hear from him, the more you see him, the more you don't like him.
That is true, actually. He is letting money go. That super PAC is spending their money up in New Hampshire. It's doing him absolutely no good. I think he's already written off Iowa. I don't think he's even bothering there. You know, what does a guy like this do, you guys?
Well, I don't know, but while he's doing that and being petulant and saying, go vote for Trump, Ted Cruz is out there gathering billionaires in Texas, picking up Walker's people. He has $69 million in his campaign.
I agree. He's the one to watch. Very quietly, he's being very smart. I think that's the case.
Smart guy.
So you tell me, is Jeb Bush already cooked? Or will the GOP do what it always does and choose the establishment, middle-of-the-road candidate? Let us know by leaving a comment at newsmaxtv.com/comments. Coming up, we read some of those very same viewer comments live on air, so stay with us.
Well, look, the problem with Trump is he gets his policy advice from the shows. He's not serious. I mean, if you're going to run for the presidency of the United States, you should take the time to explore the challenges that are faced.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. To catch more of J.D. Hayworth's interview with former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, tune into Newsmax Prime at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That is tonight. All right, let's read some of your viewer comments. First up, we have some thoughts about the Benghazi hearing from Cornell. Not Cornell West, though, I don't think he would write the show. I just do not understand you conservatives, he says.
Maybe it is Cornell West.
Could be. After numerous investigations and Senate hearings, you still cannot handle the truth, Jack Nicholson. You cannot find or prove any wrongdoings, but still you continue to think there is something Secretary Clinton is hiding. Take it away, Rick.
I'm just shocked by that comment here. Glenna writes, Hillary Clinton is covering up for Obama. Gun running was probably going on, and the president most likely knew about it. Glenna, you're absolutely right, gun running was going on. Of course the president knew about it. It was a covert CIA operation. It's not about covering up. America engages in a lot of covert CIA operations, and you should be glad we do.
Wow, you just revealed a lot. That's what was going on?
Oh, absolutely. We've been talking about it.
Seymour
We were talking
Hersh.
about that when you were gone.
Seymour Hersh
He wrote, and my own independent investigations, of which I did much, absolutely backs up what Seymour Hersh wrote. It's at this point not even a question. This was all about the annex, not about the consulate. And the annex is where this was going on. We did it in partnership with the Brits, MI6, and the Turks, so that we could get around the law by creating a situation where we were helping them.
Wow. Well, I was out. All I know is that I kept hearing that Hillary Clinton had this great week, and now a great week is defined is if you don't get indicted and you're proven to have lied. And she gets off.
Nah, I don't quite see it that way.
You don't see it that way.
First of all, we don't know if she's going to be indicted. She had a great week because she killed in the debate. She had a great week
against 3 street turtles and a socialist.
Whatever. She still gained the points on the polls.
I agree.
So that's a great week.
Yeah.
Her biggest potential threat, Joe Biden decided not to run. He didn't drop out because he was never in. Right. He decided not to run, and she survived the Benghazi hearings.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Wait till you see her polls next week. I think we'll be able to settle this argument.
No. Her poll numbers will go up. I just think our standards have gone way down in what we expect from our leaders. That's all. And I don't make soapbox comments like that very often. Anyway, here's a comment regarding the presidential race from Marie. I believe that Donald Trump is the best candidate to win the nomination, for he is the only one who can and will fix the economy. Go Trump. We talked about this before. We should be talking about that more.
Yeah. Leonard writes, as a Mexican-American Democratic voter, I am sick and tired of the lies, the double standards, and how weak the president has portrayed our country. Hillary Clinton has proven she is incapable to stand up against Putin in Syria or ISIS in Iraq. I think I might end up voting Republican in 2016. Hillary hasn't stood up yet against Putin in Syria. She's not president yet.
Good point. She does have a reset button, though, that she has held on to.
Yeah, that didn't work out so well. I'll give him that.
And finally, here's a comment about Lois Lerner. Why is it always Lois always has alliteration going? Lois Lane, Lois Lerner.
Yeah, you got to love it.
Anyway, and the IRS being found innocent of wrongdoing when they targeted conservative groups. Ron writes, this is why big government seems so corrupt. No matter what party controls the White House, the IRS is one of the most powerful agencies in federal government, and there is no doubt they targeted Republicans. But they get a pass. Benny?
I agree. It's a symptom of government, no matter who it's controlled by, but I will say that the nature and the scope of it, of the weaponization and politicization of the bureaucracy, whether it's the DOJ, the IRS, NSA, or any of the other alphabet soup of bureaucracies in this government is just beyond the pale.
I'll tell you what, here's where I'm going to disagree with the commenter. When I was an attorney, I used to tell my clients, you have to worry about 2 agencies in government, the DEA and the SEC. They're the killers. The IRS is actually easy to fight and easy to deal with. I think they did do something wrong here, but it wasn't criminal.
Gallup has a great poll out that says just 23% of the public has high or some confidence in a justice system that could play fairly.
All right, well, if you want to weigh in on any of the issues we talk about here on the show, be sure to send us your comments at newsmaxtv.com/comments. As you can see, we'll even read them on the air. Coming up next, time for Yay or Nay. But first, Joe, you got something for our audience.
The shocking new book, Unlikable, The Problem with Hillary by Edward Klein, has already skyrocketed to the top of the bestseller lists. It's probably the most powerful expose on Hillary ever written. In Unlikable, author Ed Klein offers a stunning, powerful expose of Hillary Clinton and her floundering race to the White House. With unprecedented access, Klein meticulously recreates conversations and details of Hillary Clinton's behind-the-scenes plotting. Klein also reveals the angry rivalry between Hillary and Barack Obama. Unlikable retails for $29.95, but now you can get it with our free offer. Get this almost $30 value absolutely free. Just go online to newsmax.com/Klein or call toll-free 1-800-850-8749. With the 2016 election fast approaching, you need to get unlikable and be armed with the truth about Hillary. Check out. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's time for Yay or Nay. First up, Jeopardy has been an American institution since 1964. We call it around here Rick's freshman year. This guy even, it's true, isn't it? I looked it up. This guy even records the program every night on the DVR machine. And one thing the show is decidedly not is politically polarizing. It's a game show after all. All that said, listen to how this loaded question played out on Friday night's show when the final Jeopardy answer was this. Take it away, Alex.
Also, a disparaging term for people on the political left. 30 seconds, good luck. Becky, we're going to start with you, and I have a feeling that you may have found a way to insult liberals in this country. Let's take a look at your response. What is a pansy? Yep, you found a way to insult liberals in this country, and you are incorrect, so you're not doing yourself any good financially. You're going to wind up in second place. You lost all of your money.
She lost all of her money, but she seemed almost happy to do it just so she could insult people like you, Unger.
Well, I'm glad that she lost all of her money, Pans. That's pretty funny.
Well, here's the yay or nay question, okay? Is it an acceptable answer, however? Should it have been accepted?
No.
I'm just asking.
I don't know what the right answer was.
Bleeding heart.
Bleeding heart.
Bleeding heart, liberal. Yeah, pansy, not so much.
Pansy, not so much.
Okay,
no.
very good. Ben, acceptable answer?
As an objective viewer, absolutely, of course.
He's objective. Bill?
Well, then where does that put us with Hillary Clinton? Because there are a lot of people who would definitely say she's not a pansy.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Sure.
They call her a lot of things, not pansy.
Speaking of people that aren't, people speaking of aren't pansies, next up, Chris Christie is many things, but his most notable attribute, or negative, depending on your opinion of the New Jersey governor, is his verbosity and volume of said verbosity. But some places just aren't meant for those who can't keep their voice down, especially Amtrak, which, and I know this from experience, has designated quiet cars that run as strict as a North Korean library when it comes to speaking in any capacity. They'll smack you down. No phone calls, no conversations allowed of any kind. It's probably the best idea Amtrak has ever come up with. So when Mr. Christie boarded the quiet car on his way from New Jersey to D.C., he quickly showed he didn't get the memo, speaking at a high volume and setting an Amtrak record for most "are you kidding me" questions into a cell phone the first 10 minutes of a train ride. Christie was then promptly removed from the car, just as any passenger would be. I've seen it. Presidential aspirations be damned. Yay or nay question. Should all public transport be conversation free? I say yay, yay, yay.
Yay. I'm with you.
Oh, good.
Absolutely, yeah.
100%.
Well,
Have you taken
first, let me take a sip of my strawberry milkshake, as did
oh, yeah, he likes
the governor. He had a strawberry milkshake.
It's that
with him.
smoothie.
And questioned the question because I don't believe they have libraries in North Korea.
Oh, good point. I was making a metaphorical point.
Of course you should be
Kim
allowed.
Jong-un probably has a library.
That's why you have quiet cars. If you don't want to hear anybody talking, go sit in the quiet car. I'm not going to give up my phone when I'm on the train. Why should I?
Because it's so annoying.
Then go sit in the quiet car.
Yeah, they're always full. Sometimes I'm forced to sit next to people like you.
Amtrak to add a second quiet car.
You know, I just have to say, taking a bus, Rick, on the bus all the time, people who speak really, really loudly on the phone. Yeah. And the best thing I ever saw was a guy who leaned over to one of these people one day on the bus and said, "Excuse me, but I don't think you can understand. We all hear what you're saying."
I said that. That was me before you knew it.
Yeah, there we go.
I do it almost every
That's
day.
what you get for taking the bus.
Anyway, finally tonight, did you hear the big news? Sources telling AOL on Sunday that Joe Biden will enter the 2016 presidential race. This according to AOL's official Twitter feed. Okay, right. Biden announced last week he would not seek his party's nomination. No matter, AOL, apparently a little behind the times, sent out this news anyway, as you could see there. And you can only imagine how the rest of the Twitter responded. Let's read a couple. Y'all just as slow as the dial-up I had to use to get in chat rooms in 1995. Show me another. Dial-up breaking news, FTW, this posted 3 hours ago. People love this. Can't believe all the major outlets missed this. What a scoop. After some much-deserved mockery, more dial-up jokes than you can count, AOL issued a retraction and an apology. Question, should AOL save that tweet just in case something happens to Hillary? That could be force her out of the race.
Should save it no matter what.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
Ben?
some intern is going to get their head.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, well, that's our show for tonight. On behalf of Rick Unger, Bill Tucker, Ben Weingarten, thanks for joining us. The Steve Malzberg Show. That's straight ahead.